When Lowell Cemetery was created in 1841, its founders hired a landscape architect to divide the then 42-acre cemetery into 500 lots. Each lot contained room for 30 burials. Most were purchased by families, but some were purchased by institutions. We're here at a lot that was purchased by St. Paul's Methodist Church in Lowell. Members of the church's congregation or people who were unable to afford their own grave were often buried in the 30 lots in this parcel. One of the people buried here is named Barilla Taylor. Barilla was born in Roxbury, Maine in 1828. When she was just 14 years old, she came to Lowell, Massachusetts to work in the city's textile mills. She worked in the Hamilton mills, and she lived in one of the company boarding houses. Now, the model embraced by the founders of Lowell was one that intended to make living conditions for the mill workers much better than was the case in England. Francis Cabot Lowell, for instance, the city's founding father, who died before the city actually was created, was appalled by the harsh living conditions of the working class in England, and he vowed to do better. And his associates that carried on his work, when they came to Lowell, besides the mill buildings, they created dormitory-like boarding houses for the workers to live in. And there was a practical reason for doing that, because when the mills opened here, there really were only about 200 people living in Lowell at the time. So they had to attract a workforce. And the primary candidates for that were young women like Barilla Taylor, who lived on farms throughout New England. In order to entice them and have their fathers allow them to come to this new city, the mill owners created a very structured environment that included adult supervision, mandatory church, and cultural activities. Now, there's no getting past the hard work that was required in the mills, the long hours, but life on a farm in New England in the 19th century was also very difficult work. And what was different here in Lowell was the women got paid for it, whereas in the farm it was just expected to them and they weren't financially compensated. And getting paid for their work was very empowering for these young women. And even though they were working 12 hours a day, they still found time and energy to write, to play music, to go to lectures, and to do all sorts of activities. However, eventually economic necessity caused this utopian lifestyle that the mill owners desired to give way to harsh reality as wages were cut, and also the work conditions required the operatives to, instead of overseeing one loom, they would have to do 2 and then 4. So work became much more burdensome. And of course, there were hazards in the mills. One was brown lung. There was an incredible amount of dust from the cotton that was created in the mill environment. And Barilla Taylor succumbed to that. At just age 17, in 1945, she died. Now, initially she was buried elsewhere, but then friends who lived here acquired a lot for her in the St. Paul's parcel, and Barilla's body was exhumed and moved here, and this stone was purchased for her. And so this is the burial place of Barilla Taylor, a young mill worker from Roxbury, Maine, came to Lowell, Massachusetts, but died at age 17 of brown lung.